All right, so this is 10-year-old me. And to cut a longer story a little shorter, 10-year-old me had a bad habit of lying and stealing. You know, trinkets, a few dollars in iPods here and there if I could find it in an open purse somewhere, the usual rounds. Anyway, when I was in about the third grade or so, Yu-Gi-Oh cards became super popular. You know, the card game based off the TV show where you battle monsters? It's kind of like Pokemon, but with playing cards people actually understood. And me and my brother wanted nothing more than to get in on that action we saw all our friends were in at school. So one day our dad came back from work with two starter packs with 9 cards in them each. It came out of nowhere and it freaked us the fuck out because we'd been asking for weeks and he kept telling us that they were too expensive. And I mean, I don't blame him. Those fuckers were like $3.99 for a pack of just 9 cards. And even though games were normally played with 40 cards on either side, it didn't stop us from spending hours playing with those same 9 cards. So fast forward to after school one day when me, my brother Norman, and our cousin went to Quick Trip. They sold them at places like these: gas stations, grocery stores, wherever. Well, my brother took me inside and told me to just wait at the front. He goes to the front counter, picked up like 7 or 8 packs, and started to take them to the bathroom. The cashier stopped him and asked where he was going with all of them. My brother said that he was just going to look at them. That's as dumb of an answer as you probably could get, but I thought it was absolutely masterful. When he came back, he had maybe 4 or 5 packs. The cashier didn't seem to pay much mind to my brother returning, but obviously knew what had just happened, and I couldn't believe it. Yeah, I had stolen all kinds of things before, but mostly from friends and family. But this? He was messing with the law, yo. Hell nah. But he explained it to me and told me how easy it was and how many more cards I could get if I just listened to him. And I did. Fast forward 2 years and I'm the goddamn kingpin. Seriously. My brother stopped taking cards a little bit after that thing at Quick Trip, but I was far from finished. I made my rounds at Walmarts, gas stations, Kroger's. Hell, they were all candy stores to me, and nowhere was safe. Soon I became the talk of the town at school. I had all the cards kids wanted, and they would trade me for them and whatnot. I even had scouts that would look out for new cards in the halls to make sure that no one else had anything I didn't. Like, it was real as hell. I guess being a Yu-Gi-Oh crime lord is better than drugs, though, right? Well, fast forward one more time to a time where a new Duelist Kingdom starter pack was coming out, or something like that. The point is, this was something I needed. And lo and behold, me and the fam were on the way to Target. And this was perfect. I didn't even have to ask to go to the store or come up with any excuses to get out of the house. Straight candy. So I go in and notice that they have a few new packs I wanted at the front of the store. Now, they were normally in an aisle somewhere else, so this was a little more out in the open. I knew I had to do a little more work for this one, so I broke open the box that the packs were in to take out the packs individually. After I managed to get one pack out, I started walking to the back of the store so I could do my thing. On my way, this guy in some kind of weird, backwards old Sanford & Son hat passes me and he's got his phone up to his ear, but I notice him look down at my hands and stutter with his phone call. So not thinking much of it, I just keep going. And eventually I get the cards out the pack and leave the wrapper in an aisle somewhere. And at this point, I'm already feeling a little uneasy. So I decided to just go with one pack and call it a day. I catch up with my dad and my siblings to leave the store. And as we're walking out, I hear this dude calling out, saying,
Sir, excuse me, sir.
and I'm immediately like, oh, hell no, I know this man is not calling out to us right now. Sure enough, he was trying to wave down my dad. He finally catches up to us and he starts talking to him.
I'm sorry to have you stop, sir, but I saw your son stealing a pack of cards.
And you know, my dad was looking around like, psh, who was stealing? Not my kids. You know, that whole deal. My dad eventually looks over to me for validation. And I'm obviously like, no, I didn't take anything, trying to lie my ass off. So my dad asks me if I have any of those cards. And I was like, I mean, I have the ones I brought with me. That's all I have. Pulling out the only 9 cards in my fucking pocket. The dude in the cap was like,
Don't bother lying. We have everything on camera and I saw you do it.
so I just gave up the cards I took, and my dad pays the $3.99 for the single pack that I took. Cue the longest and most intense car ride of my life. No one said anything. I don't even think my dad blinked on the way home. We finally get home and bring in the groceries, and my dad is still completely silent. I just go up to my room because I don't know what the hell to do. I'm assuming I'll die by the end of the night, but I was home for another 20 minutes before I spoke to him again. So to gauge how actually fucked I was, I went downstairs to ask him if he would help me with my homework. Now, I never asked for help with my homework, mostly because I almost never did it. He was standing barely a foot away from the TV and just switching through channels every few seconds.
Dad,
He didn't answer.
can you help me with my homework?
I'll help you later.
I don't know, or some demonic voice like that. So I went up backstairs like, damn, like what's going to happen to me, right? He left a few minutes later to go pick up my mom from work, and that's when I remembered, damn, I got to tell my mom. So she gets back home, and my dad is helping her bring some of her things in. He calls me downstairs and wants me to tell her what I did.
You have something to say to your mom?
I just stood there looking all pathetic, keeping my head down. What? What'd you do? All right. Nah, I'm not gonna even do that. My mom don't sound like that. What, you stole something? And I nodded my head. Are you serious? My dad had to leave and go somewhere else again, but she just told me to go upstairs and strip down naked. So I'm just up in my room waiting, naked as all hell, waiting for her to come up. But it takes like 20 minutes for anything to happen. Turns out, she was waiting for my dad to get home. He came back in and asked my mom where I was. She told him she sent me upstairs and told me to get naked, but she might let me put my underwear back on. Mom always had a soft spot for the baby of the family. But my dad must have been like, fuck that, because the second she told him that, he stormed upstairs and busted into my room with his belt and started swinging like a blind kid in a piñata store. This was by far the absolutely worst and last beating of my life. I mean, it actually hurt to sit down for like a week. Holy shit. My dad is using this thick-ass snakeskin belt that basically gave me temporary tattoos. It feels like it's going on for hours, and my brother and sister are downstairs making burgers and shit, trying to drown out the sound of me getting my ass beat. He eventually stops and yells,
You better hope I don't come back in here.
I just lay there a while and thank the earth and trees around me that it's finally over. The worst was having to talk to my mom after and confess to her about all the times I was with her in a store and was taking cards without her even knowing. So obviously I ended up taking them downstairs and throwing away my drawers full of cards. Maybe that was the worst part. Actually, nah, they ain't even let me have one of the burgers that night. That was the worst part. But at that point, I just wanted to get some sleep and forget about it all. So I wake up the next morning a little late. I definitely have school, but for some reason it's like 9 o'clock and no one woke me up. I was confused as hell. I go downstairs and my sister and dad are in the kitchen. My sister is making something on the stove and I go up to my dad to ask him why I didn't go to school this morning. He told me to follow him down to the basement. Now, our basement is unfinished. It's just a bunch of sheetrock and piles of bins of junk. He took me over to the would-be bathroom section. He cleared it out and took out a spare bed frame from under my sister's bed and put it in there with a pillow. Yeah, just the bed frame, and a pillow without a pillowcase. He told me that if I wanted to be a criminal, he was going to treat me like one. I was to stay in his DIY jail cell for the entire day until he and my mom got back home. He said I wasn't even allowed to leave and walk around the basement because I wouldn't be able to do that in jail. Not that I would even want to. The basement is dark and dusty, and who knows what the fuck is living down there. I was safest in the cell. So he let me take a few books down there, and my sister was instructed to bring me down a bland as fuck sandwich every few hours. He didn't even let her talk to me. I felt like I was going crazy. I started having hallucinations about oversized centipedes crawling through the pipes and ghosts and dark figures emerging through the shadows. There was no room for comfort. I was terrified of my own basement, but I knew I was safest on my little bed frame. And I don't know how, but I managed to finally fall asleep to try and pass the time. It didn't last long, though. Eventually, I just sat there and stared in front of me until I heard the most beautiful sound. It was my mom coming back home, and I heard her come through the front door. It felt like another 30 minutes before she opened the basement door and came down to get me. I was never so happy to see someone in my life. It was like heaven's gates opened up or something. She sat down and talked to me for a minute, and I'm pretty sure I started bawling when she hugged me. I told her how sorry I was and how I never wanted to do it again. My dad was willing to let me stay the night down there. Hell, earlier he told me the only reason he didn't let backwards cap dude take me to jail is because he had to make a payment for my sister's college. Regardless, my mom figured I learned my lesson and let me come up with her. And yes, I got to have a leftover burger for dinner that night. Still hurt like a bitch.